In just a couple months, Justice League will be premiering across the US. Now, I'm sure many of you haven't watched the DCEU movies. Not that I blame you, and I'm a DC fan. However, if you wish to learn more about the team and their dynamic, then look no further. Today I will talk about my favorite Justice League story arcs. Besides being my favorite, I rank those in terms of threat level, team dynamic, and story. Don't worry though, I won't spoil the story either or any major events. So without further ado, let's dive right into the top 10 Justice League comics. Cry for Justice. This is probably the most obscure and random Justice League team out there, and one that doesn't include the trinity of Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. Instead, for this Justice League roster, we have Green Arrow, Green Lantern, Batwoman, the Atom, Shazam, Freddie Freeman version, Starman, Congorilla, and Supergirl. It's a real ragtag group of superheroes, and one that came together after Green Arrow and Green Lantern left the Justice League looking for a more proactive stand on justice, by hunting down members of the Secret Society, for they have taken down 2 of their own JLA members. Also, each Justice League member is looking to seek out their own justice, with Congorilla looking for the man who killed his gorilla pack, Atom wants to find out who stole his technology, and Starman wants to find the murderer of his boyfriend. Along the journey, the Justice League confronts Prometheus. Yeah, not the guy from the CW, this guy. The story is great, which brings up moral codes and ethics that superheroes should or should not cross, and what happens when they do cross them. Also filled with many twists and an ingenious plan that there seems to be no way out of. And the ending was quite shocking given one character who I never thought would take that shot. Cry for Justice is a must read, given that it's a great story and one without DC's Trinity. As I stated before, it also has one of the more interesting core members of the Justice League team. I really wish they did more stories with them because their dynamic was pretty great, and I really love this team, especially with Congorilla. In Justice League War, we have the origin of the new 52 version of the Justice League team. I also believe it to be one of the best things to come out of the new 52. And War seems to be where the film will draw most of its inspiration from.
Fighting the devil and his army.
The story also serves as an origin story for Cyborg, and it's the first time we see him as a member of the Justice League.
Upload initiated. Completed. Recalibrate.
As the team comes together through the investigation of parademons who are planting mother boxes across the globe. We get some great banter between Green Lantern and Batman in the beginning, and their investigation leads them to Superman, who they believe is connected to these parademons.
In a plane.
Wait, you're not just some guy in a bat costume, are you?
The two confront Superman, and this leads to a big fight between the 3 heroes. But what I didn't like was how they portrayed Superman in the beginning, who was just looking to fight instead of looking to make peace, and trying to find out what exactly is going on. The Flash comes in for the save and seems to hold his own, but we soon see just how outclassed Flash, Green Lantern, and Batman are by Superman. But what I did love most of all was my boy Aquaman's entrance, and that was just pure badassery. You got to see the team at its core, and be vulnerable and exposed, and just what kind of heroes these guys are based on the decisions they made when everything is on the line.
When I was 10, my parents were murdered in front of my eyes. I've spent my
I mean,
life
these
trying to
guys
fight
really
the
give
same
it their
sort of
all,
criminals that took
especially
them
to
from me.
stop the all-powerful
This-
Darkseid.
This is different.
And Darkseid's power and might is fully showcased here, proving to be more than enough of a worthy foe for the Justice League. It was heart-wrenching to see these heroes get pummeled and pummeled after each take on Darkseid, and there seemed to be no way out for these guys. But I won't spoil the ending for you guys. You can all find out what happens in this comic. I mean, that's the point of this episode, to get you guys to read these comics. And I know you'll enjoy it. Justice League War is a good intro for the Justice League, especially for beginners, so check it out. Justice League War has also been adapted into an animated movie with the same name, albeit a few changes, with Aquaman's place being taken over by Shazam. However, I do recommend reading the comic first before watching the movie. Justice League: The New Frontier. In this story, the golden age of heroes is on the decline. With the Cold War tensions high and McCarthyism taking over, the US government has forced heroes to either retire or register with them. Sound familiar? Except this time, no heroes fighting each other. Superman and Wonder Woman join and are split between doing what is right and what is legal.
This is what the government's afraid of, Diana. Us acting like vigilantes.
I have to do what I think is right.
At the same time, an alien threat dubbed the Center emerges, which is threatening all life on Earth. New heroes emerge and band together with the same government that once tried to take them down. This comic also served to bridge the gap between the Golden Age heroes of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman to the Silver Age heroes of Green Lantern, The Flash, and Martian Manhunter. It is a great story by the late Dorwin Cook, whose joyful art and bright colors portray an optimistic picture, which is what I think the comic is going for, a better tomorrow. Justice League New Frontier is also another one that has been adapted into an animated movie. There are some changes from the comics and some stuff that was censored out, but overall it was still a great movie and one of my favorites, so please check out both. Are you ever in a situation where you think you're doing a good job, but then someone else comes along and does an even better job? Well, that's what happened to the Justice League when the HyperClan came to Earth in Justice League New World Order. The HyperClan's approach to saving the world was different from the Justice League. They had a more hands-on approach, such as changing the ecosystem on Earth, like bringing lush rainforests to the Sahara Desert. And aside from stopping a few criminals, they would flat out just execute them. And this won over the public's favor, making them prefer the HyperClan over the Justice League. I mean, clearly something was not right and seemed too good to be true, and the JLA was very suspicious, especially Batman. But when isn't he? The HyperClan do have a hidden agenda, and once Batman finds out, he goes full badass to try and stop them. The Justice League team in this story is revamped after previous titles have failed, with New Lantern Kyle Rayner taking over, Wally West is now the Flash, Wonder Woman, Super 90s Aquaman, Mullet Superman, not even his worst look though unfortunately, and Batman and Martian Manhunter finish up the roster. This is one of my favorite Justice League teams, thanks to Kyle Rayner, because he was one of my favorite Lanterns during that time. And also because of Grant Morrison, he revamped the title and brought life back to the Justice League after there was no interest in it at all. There are numerous great fights in history. David versus Goliath, Ali versus Frazier, Goku versus Frieza. And now we have Darkseid versus the Anti-Monitor in Darkseid War. One of the better crossovers of the New 52, and with this time Wonder Woman taking the center lead as we find out she has some connection to Darkseid, given that he has a daughter with one of the Amazons, Marina Black, and his daughter Grail. And just like any great family, Marina and Grail set out to destroy Darkseid. And to do that, they need to find someone powerful enough to do it. And that's the Anti-Monitor. A battle between gods, and Earth was the battlefield, and the Justice League was caught in between. The story begins with Darkseid returning to Earth for a rematch with the League after being defeated back in war. But what happens, and I swear this isn't even the biggest spoiler, is Darkseid dies. And because of that, the League gets turned into gods, with Batman becoming the god of knowledge, Flash the god of death, Shazam the god of gods, Green Lantern the god of the parademons, and Superman the god of strength, and Lex Luthor now holds the Omega Force. What was crazy for me though was that with Batman now being the god of knowledge, he asked the chairs a couple of questions, but the one that stood out the most for me was, who is the Joker? And he got an answer, and we find out that answer at the end of the crossover. Now, I won't spoil that for you. The odds are really stacked against the League here, and Wonder Woman also finds out a big secret about herself. And as for Grail, we see the whole nature versus nurture within her. Is she evil because of her family, or is she evil because she chooses to be? Plenty of twists and turns in this comic, keep you on the edge of your seat, plus fabulous art that is just pure cinematic. Admit it, you were all once a fan of the Super Friends. So was I, and that's when I also first became an Aquaman fan. Don't judge, however, you will all soon become fans of him as well. Anyways, Alex Ross and Jim Krueger's Jusitce is an homage to the classic Super Friends show. In this story, the world's supervillains have a recurring dream about the world ending in a nuclear apocalypse. They believe this happens because the world relies on the Justice League way too much. So, to prevent this dream from becoming a reality, they set out to, quote-unquote, save the world. They start by curing the sick and the disabled, and also bringing lush oases to the Sahara, as well as creating utopian cities for the sick people to come live on and anyone else willingly to enter. At the same time, JLA members were being taken out and put under mind control for a grander scheme. It was crazy just how effective and surgical these attacks were. It makes you want to keep reading just to see how it is that the JLA makes it. Also, this comic begins to show just how big a badass Aquaman is. The comic also has plenty of team-ups and sweet, sweet battles. And all of it being captured by Alex Ross's art makes it epic, and it feels like you're reading a movie. I highly recommend reading Jusitce, and hope this comic can get adapted into either an animated movie or the next live-action movie for the DCEU. I mean, I know we all want to see the Justice League all armored up, ready to take on the Legion of Doom. Plus, I also want to get my hands on one of those figures as well. Remember how I was talking about Aquaman being a badass? Well, in this story, he makes badassery his bitch. In Throne of Atlantis, things are tense between the surface world and the sunken continent of Atlantis. Let alone Aquaman's jealous and insecure half-brother Orm is now king. So when a weapon testing goes wrong and Atlantis is hit, Orm seeks a diplomatic approach to the situation. If only. No, Orm plans a full-scale invasion and attacks the entire eastern seaboard of America. What I enjoyed though is we begin to understand the turmoil Aquaman deals with. Caught between two worlds, does he do his duty as a Justice League member and fight against Atlantis to protect the innocent? Or to win the love of his people and finally be recognized as Atlantean royalty, help Atlantis take over America and avenge his home that was attacked. There are tons of great moments in the comic, such as Aquaman punching Superman and sending him flying. The art is outstanding by Ivan Reis and probably one of my favorite interpretations of it. There is also an animated adaptation, but it's vastly different than its comic counterpart. I recommend reading Throne of Atlantis first, and then watching the animated adaptation. Batman can be the Justice League's greatest asset, but also their worst enemy, as proven in this story, Tower of Babel. Batman has collected information on his fellow Justice League members, and made contingency plans should any Justice League member go rogue or evil. Unfortunately, these plans are stolen by none other than Ra's al Ghul, who uses these plans to incapacitate the League to keep them from interfering in his latest scheme, reducing the world population. Batman must have had plenty of prep time for these plans though, because some of them are really ingenious, and some of them are pretty dumb. The plan to stop Green Lantern Kyle Rayner was to make him temporarily blind through post-hypnotic suggestion, because without sight, he wouldn't be able to guide the ring's power, which is kinda dumb if you ask me. For Superman, he was to be exposed to red kryptonite to make his skin translucent, which would cause his muscles to be overloaded with yellow sun radiation, which is pretty fatal if you ask me, and kind of diabolical by Batman. I think Wonder Woman was one of the few that got it bad, because she was implanted with a VR chip that would simulate a battle with an opponent who was evenly matched, and she would keep fighting and fighting until finally she would just die from exhaustion. The Flash was hit with a special bullet in the back of his neck, which caused him to have seizures at high speeds. Pretty bad if you ask me. Martian Manhunter got injected with magnesium nanites that caused him to burst into flames whenever exposed to air. Aquaman got a case of hydrophobia thanks to Scarecrow's fear toxin. And without water, Aquaman dies. Plastic Man was then frozen with liquid nitrogen and then shattered into a million pieces. Obviously, the League felt betrayed by Batman, and that he will go to these lengths and compromise their trust. A divide was created between Batman and the team, and while some League members saw the reasoning for the plans in the first place, others felt that they couldn't trust him anymore or even work with him again.
In the same situation.
And if you ask Batman, he would say he would do it all again in a heartbeat. And while there is an animated adaptation of Tower of Babel called Justice League Doom, again, I recommend reading the comic first and then watching the movie. Kingdom Come is one of those stories that change how people see superheroes. In this story, the Justice League has disbanded, Superman is now in exile, new heroes have taken up the mantles of heroes past, except with no morals, and little regard to civilian safety. Norman McKay, an ordinary civilian, has visions of a possible future, an all-out war among the meta-human community. With the Spectre, he watches these events unfold, hoping they can be prevented. This story is also what I believe inspired Injustice. Superman has become detached and distant from mankind, even shedding his name, Clark Kent, and preferring to be called Superman, or his Kryptonian name, Kal-El. Due to a tragedy in Kansas that causes millions and millions of civilian lives from the hero Magog, Superman returns from exile and wants to make the world a better place, and gives the heroes of the world a choice. Either fall in line and join, or be in prison and forcefully rehabilitated. Sound familiar? Except, Superman does no killing here. That is only Magog. And Batman has teamed up with Lex Luthor to oppose Superman. Alright, are we sure Injustice didn't just copy this story completely? Nah, I'm just kidding. Anyways, Batman recruits his own heroes to oppose Superman and hopefully keep the civilian casualty down. He also wants to investigate a missing hero that he believes is in Lex Luthor's. I mean, the story itself is really cinematic, but it's Alex Ross's art that truly brings that whole movie feel to it. It is very epic and just great visuals. I mean, even the themes of the story are pretty great with the whole morals, change, and no one here is actually evil on either side as well. They both believe what they're doing is right, and in a way they are. Kingdom Come is definitely a must read. And please check it out, and hopefully one day they do an animated adaptation, or maybe even live action. Crisis. It is the one word that resonates throughout the DC universe, mostly because every time the word crisis is used, it changes the whole DC universe. And now, some of you may be thinking that I'm cheating by grouping together all the Crisis events, but they're all just too great to even not put them anywhere else. And I feel because they changed the DC universe, all three belong in the #1 spot. It all started with Crisis on Infinite Earths, probably the first big company-wide comic book event, used to clean up the continuity problems within the DC universe. Crisis on Infinite Earths brought in the Anti-Monitor, who wants to destroy the multiverse. The multiverse are parallel Earths, which was used at first to explain continuity problems within the universe, but then all of that became a jumbled mess. Crisis on Infinite Earths brought together heroes and villains from multiple Earths, banding together to fight the Anti-Monitor and hoping to stop total annihilation. In the end, all Earths combined into one new Earth, while the heroes who didn't feel they belonged went to the Paradise Dimension, like Superboy Prime and Alexander Luthor. This event caused multiple deaths, even to some of our beloved favorite characters. It truly did change the status quo. Now, in 0 Hour Crisis in Time, Parallax, who used to be Green Lantern Hal Jordan, set out to recreate the universe after his home city, Coast City, was destroyed by Mongol. 0 Hour also made changes to a few characters, such as Batman, who now no longer knows who killed his parents, and was also considered an urban myth instead of being a fleshed out, straight up superhero. 0 Hour was pretty unique in that its comic numbering went backwards instead of forwards, counting down until the number 0. Heroes and villains of the DC Universe had to travel back to the dawn of time in order to prevent Parallax from accomplishing his goal. Zero Hour also looked to explain which version of Hawkman we had, but that became even more confusing at the end, and instead, Hypertime was introduced. I'll go over Hypertime and the multiverse in another video, because I know this stuff can be really confusing. Just imagine me trying to summarize all this up for you. Now, in Infinite Crisis, it throws everything done in Crisis on Infinite Earths out the window. I know it's confusing because of the similar names, so we will call Infinite Crisis by its lesser known name, which is Mid-Crisis. Superboy Prime, Alexander Luthor of Earth 3, Superman and Lois of Earth 2 come back from the Paradise Dimension because Lois' health is failing. Not much of a paradise if you ask me. Alexander Luthor and Superboy Prime, who were heroes in the first Crisis, are now the central villains here, wanting to create the perfect world, while Superboy's insecurity makes him want to be the only superhero, leading him to massacre lots and lots of heroes. And villains too. There's some great action between Superboy Prime and the Speedster family of the Flash, and plenty of oh my god moments, and a fantastic tale, even if it does get confusing with the continuity. And now for the last of the Crisis, which is properly named Final Crisis. I remember when Final Crisis was still going on, and I would wait at Borders for the collected issues. Man, do I miss Borders. Darkseid has traveled through time and stumbles upon Earth, where he has now assumed a human form, along with the rest of the new gods of Apocalypse. He amasses an army and then continues to take out the rest of the Justice League members, with Superman forced to travel to the future in order to find a cure for Lois, who was mortally wounded when a bomb goes off in a Daily Planet. However, not all hope is lost with Silver Age Flash Barry Allen returning from the Speed Force. He, along with Wally West, traveling back in time to stop the Radion bullet that would kill another opposer in Darkseid's plan, Orion, his own son. With no one left to stand in his way, Darkseid unleashes the anti-life equation, enslaving all of humanity and bringing Earth and the multiverse into darkness. Once again, heroes and villains band together to fight Darkseid, and Batman has one pivotal moment when he confronts Darkseid. I really don't want to spoil what happens, and I really hope you guys don't spoil yourselves either, and hopefully read the comic and see what it is that I'm talking about. So please, check out all these Crisis events. They are filled with drama, action, whatever you enjoy, I'm sure they have it. So please, check them out. This has been GeekNext's Top 10 Justice League comics to read before watching the movie. Let me know if you guys agree with my list or not, or if you have any other story arcs that you prefer to be on this list, or any ones that I missed. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I'm really looking forward to the Justice League movie. Until next time, guys.